In this video, we'll be going over how to install a motor on a Matilda. So what you'll need is the Matilda motor. We include a bag of all the screws, a Phillips head bit, 7/64 hex bit, some pliers, and then a fairly large flat blade screwdriver and a drill if possible. So to start off, we'll want to loosen the two screws that hold the motor cover in place, and then using the drain, kind of just push up on the cover, and then it'll come out pretty easily. And then here's where the actual motor will go into, and here's the heatsink that's pre-installed, so we'll just want to loosen that up and take the heatsink out and just set it aside for now. And now to begin, we'll want to slide up the propeller, and then just make sure when you do that, it kind of pushes up that seal so that it's not like, just so it prevents water from coming in. So this is basically the proper way to have it. It spins freely, but by pushing it up, it kind of seats that seal in place. So now we want to actually install our motor, so just screw it into the shaft. And then with your pliers, we'll want to hold off to the top of it, and then just hand tighten the motor. And on the actual motor itself, we have a positive that will line up with the positive on the actual bridge. So we just want to make sure that those two are lined up and push the motor down slowly. At the same time, kind of watching the shaft line up with the bearing down at the bottom of the tank. So right here, it lined up perfectly. It spins fine now too. But also on the side of the motor, once it's fully seated, there should be no gap in between the motor and the bridge on both sides. And you can see that on either side of the motor that there's no gap. So once we make sure that that's installed properly and the propeller is in the bearing, we can go ahead and fasten the motor down. So start off, we'll want to just take one of the heat sinks and put the Phillips head screw in. You don't want to tighten it all the way yet, and we'll want to do that with the other one. However, with this one, we have this negative wire that we want to run under the motor and in between the motor and the heat sink, as to avoid it being over it. Basically, when you go ahead and put this cover back on, it might crush the wire and cause some other issues. So by running it under, you prevent a lot of those problems in the future. And then same thing, we'll want to just hand tighten first. Now we'll want to go and get the 4 small screws that were included with the Matilda, and we'll just want to start putting them into the top of the motor. And once you're to the spot, you can actually shift the motor and twist it if you need to line up the screws to the screw holes. And then these you also want to start just tightening by hand. So once we have all these screws in place, we'll want to take the last 2 screws that were included, and then these will only go in one way, so you'll have to test which side that they go. But on this one goes in through the right side, and we'll just want to run the other small screw through, and also just hand tight for now. And then we'll repeat the process on the other side. So now we can proceed with actually screwing down the 4 screws first. So when you go to screw down the sensors, you'll want to hold them in place, or else the sensor will spin with the screw. But we'll want to screw them in, honestly just hand tight. It doesn't need to be too tight in there. Next one we'll want to screw down is the long side ones. And then on this one you'll just do hand tight as well, since the screws are very soft aluminum. And now we can plug in the motor wires. So you'll feel and hear it sort of click into place. And you'll want to do that for both the positive and negative. And then lastly, we'll just want to fasten down these two last screws. Also just hand tight. And we'll want to verify that everything is installed properly after, so we can test the motor and it spins fine with no binding up or anything. And then just want to make sure that all your cables are in place and not in the way of anything getting crushed, and everything connected properly. After that, to install the cover, we'll just want to make sure that the drain is lined up straight, or else it'll just catch with the plastic. And just push it down, and then sometimes you might have to open the lid just to set it in place. But after that's done, you can proceed to put the two screws that go up top, and you should be done. And you can now use Matilda.